Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another film theory reaction, and this is How to Survive Fallout. So if the, little, collaborator thing in the corner is to be believed, this is most likely the film theory portion of whatever Fallout special thing that that game theory and film theory are doing due to, the Fallout TV show. And in game theory's half, they were talking about, what are the potential, canon endings from Fallout New Vegas, given what we see in the Fallout TV show, especially in Season 2. And there was also the, very distressing information that we might not be getting a new mainline Fallout game until 2037. God, yeah, that was really depressing. But film theory's video here, how to actually survive Fallout. Are they talking about Fallout as in just, the concept of Fallout? Are they talking about how, when the bombs initially fall? Are they just talking about in the universe in general? Because those are all very different things, I could imagine. Obviously, if you were surviving, the nukes, obviously the easiest way would just be, outside of an area that's, the target of a nuke, hopefully, downwind. Maybe somewhere out in the country where you'd have, less of the infrastructure is reliant on big centralized networks, like in a city or something. If you're talking about, just Fallout in general, from a nuke, inside, from what I remember, I think I heard that, if you wash yourself off after washing Fallout, do not shampoo your hair. Because that could open up, your hair and allow the Fallout to actually get into it. So, that sucks. And if you were just surviving, the Fallout universe in general, I can think of, several rules, don't be a jerk, learn every skill you can, and, carry a big gun, in case the first two don't, work. Other than that, let's see what this video is actually going to be about and see how close to the mark I actually am. So, yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video linked to my game theory reaction. And if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because almost 3/4 of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because my next big goal is hopefully at 10,000 subscribers, and at the time of re-recording, I just hit 7,000 today, so hopefully that could happen, relatively soon, hopefully. And if you want to support me, but don't feel confident about becoming a YouTube or Patreon member, feel free to use the Super Thanks option underneath all of my videos. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
What's the best way to survive Fallout? Where should you go? What should you do? And what skills should you learn to survive out in this post-apocalyptic wasteland? Well, today we're going to be putting together the Wasteland Survival Guide just for you. Hello Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that doesn't want to set the world on fire, so help me out by clicking that subscribe button. It definitely won't launch anything terrible. Nope, nothing at all. So it's that time of year again, folks, where Film Theory talks about a video game IP because they keep making them into movies and TV shows. And today, we're headed back into the wasteland that is Fallout. The second season of the show just wrapped up on Amazon Prime, and honestly, I'm so impressed with how the quality of this show has stayed so steady. They really have something special on their hands, huh? If you don't know, Fallout takes place in an alternate future that's themed around the 1950s. The timeline diverged at some point, and everything was powered by nuclear technology. But unfortunately, a resource war over oil led to a great war where thousands of nuclear bombs were set off, basically destroying the world.
Because, the US couldn't share their, mythical oil-free nuclear technology with everybody, so everybody else was forced using oil.
And each Fallout story is set in the, fallout of that post-apocalypse. It's one of my favorite franchises ever, and I've dropped hundreds of hours into modding these video games. Oh yeah, and I guess a couple hundred hours playing them too. But with the show's second season wrapping up, and just how difficult it seems to live out here in the wasteland, I wondered, how would you best survive out in the Fallout? What strategies could you employ? Where would you want to go? And what skills should you want to learn?
Now wait a gosh darn minute here.
Oh, my,
Here you
everybody,
are.
it's Tom, host of our sister location Game Theory. Get out of here, this one's mine. Fallout's a TV show now.
True, but if you'll recall, we made a truce over on Game Theory because it looks like the Fallout games and the TV show are really connected. The show looks like it's going to be canon to the games, and so we used it to help figure out the canon endings of those games.
That we did. You can go check that out once this video is done, by the way.
So,
I watched
it
it
makes sense
yesterday.
for us to be looking at how to survive Fallout by using information from both the show and the games too, right?
Yeah, sure, why not? It'll be fun, and all the best Fallout characters have companions anyway. So, with that, loyal theorists, let's leave the vault and figure out how to survive Fallout. So, not everyone's journey in this wasteland is going to be exactly the same, and you're gonna need slightly different strategies depending on when and where you start. So, player one, let's imagine you're an average Joe
prepper,
before the Great War. So,
Okay. So they are kind of doing it this way. Okay. So I mean, thinking about it, I mean, throughout the games, you do find more than a few areas of are like people making their own like personal survivor like bunkers and stuff like that. I mean, like the first one that comes to my mind is, you know, in Fallout 4 and Sanctuary, there's like some one of your former neighbors has like a storm shelter in their backyard where, like, if you go into it, then you can find literal gold. After that, I mean, I think also in Fallout 4, there's like one shelter in like a town hall you come across. And then in Fallout 3, I know you come across a few, but like not many of them seem to have really lasted long term or unfortunately never even used. So, ironically enough, for all like the vault experiments and stuff like that, it seems like the vaults were honestly like seemingly one of the better ways for people to survive. I mean, you know, if you ignore, you know, the greater than zero chance that you were, you know, in some sort of weird generations long social experiment. Other than that, like, you know, the only other people that really survived are those few lucky that were still on the surface and just not caught in the blast.
So, you're a doomsday prepper. It's 2077 and you know the big one's coming.
There are over 12,000 nuclear warheads.
And they are ready to drop all around the world. Total nuclear annihilation is just around the corner, and if you want to survive the initial blasts, well, your options are limited.
Regardless of who or where you are, you're going to want to prep and hope for the best. Stockpiling as much clean water and cram and Blamco mac and cheese as you possibly can. It's also best to build up a small arsenal if you can, since you're going to want some firepower in the wasteland.
Some families in the Fallout universe had personal shelters hidden under their homes or in their backyards, like the Turnquist family in Fallout 4 or this jerk from the TV show. If you go this route, it's best to build the shelter underground and out of thick layers of concrete and bricks, since that'll do a solid job of stopping a lot of the radiation released by the initial blasts of the bomb.
Oh god, you know, I just remembered one. I'm forgetting which location is in Fallout 4, but there's one where somebody had made one in like an old train car, in an old box car in a scrapyard. And unfortunately for them, they made it airtight and they got locked inside. So before even the bombs dropped, they got locked inside and then suffocated to death. Which, God, that sucks.
But if you're unable to make one of these yourselves, well, you do have other options.
First up, there's the Pulowski Preservation Shelters
Oh
scattered
god,
throughout
not
the Americas.
those! Those things are literal death traps!
These were low-budget options that were supposed to shield you if bombs dropped when you were stuck in traffic or on the side of the road or something like that.
Unlike those other guys, the sensible folks at Pulowski Preservation Services have created an affordable line of personal protection products to make sure no one gets left behind.
The problem with these is that they basically don't work at all. They were a total scam. If you search for these in-game, they're often crammed with the skeletons of those who tried and failed to survive in them. So, back to the drawing board.
And I mean, come on, this is a theory about Fallout. I'll stop burying the lead and talk about the vaults. Yeah, before the war, the company Vault Tech collaborated with the US government to create Project Safe House.
Where will you be when the atomic bombs fall? You can secure your family's future by reserving a spot in a state-of-the-art underground vault from Vault-Tec.
In effect, these were a bunch of giant vaults designed to keep everyone inside safe from all of the radiation and nastiness happening outside. There were 122 of these things that we know of, built throughout America and Canada, and if you're looking to survive the bombs, to be honest, this is gonna be your best bet.
Wait, were there any built in Canada? I thought they were purely just an American thing. I mean, granted, I know that the U.S. annexed Canada, but like it was like it seemed like from everything I've read, it was pure like for resource extraction. I mean, there's a whole thing in the first Fallout game where they literally televise a soldier like shooting a Canadian kneeling on the ground in the back of the head. Were there any vaults in Canada? Let me look this up. I don't know. I couldn't really find like a definitive answer. Some people were saying, "Oh yes." Some people were saying, "No, Canada was annexed too close to the bombs dropping or something like that." I honestly don't know.
Vaults were mostly secure. Most had hefty food supplies and ways to restock them. Most had water chips to provide clean drinking water, and they provided community and entertainment to keep you from going insane.
But of course, there was a dark side. In
Of
this
course,
capitalist hellscape, nothing came without a catch. And if you've watched the Fallout TV show, well, you'll know that Vault-Tec wasn't actually all that interested in protecting anyone. They saw the vaults as a way to perform as many inhumane experiments as possible for their own nefarious purposes. And some of these were disgusting and evil. For example, Vaults 68 and 69, nice, each had their own starting population of 1,000 people, but in 68, only one of them was female, and in 69, only one of them was male. Obviously, that led to a lot of problems, death, and I just really don't want to imagine. Then there's Vault 4, where 30 people were locked underground with a panther, or Vault 77, where it was one dude and a box of puppets. He almost certainly went crazy because of that. And
oh no, he did. And then he, escaped and then possibly became one of those cryptids that just travels throughout the wasteland, just murdering people. Ugh.
of course, there's also Vault 108, where the original experiment went completely off the rails and the whole place got filled with a bunch of clones of a dude named Gary.
Gary. Gary. That being said, not
Gary.
every vault
I
had you
love Gary.
getting mauled in the face by a panther. Every experiment has to have a control. So there were actually 17 vaults that were exactly what was written on the tin. Vaults where you'd be safe, and everything operated completely as intended. They were well stocked, had normal amounts of people, and there was no sciencey nonsense happening in the background. And after a predetermined amount of time, the door opened and the vault dwellers were released into the real world. We actually see such a vault at the beginning of Fallout 76.
But since there were only...
No, you don't. Fallout 76 was also, a test. Though if I remember correctly, its test was like, what if you put some of the most like competitive people in a single vault and then just let them out into the world, if I remember correctly.
17 of these things, your odds of being accepted into one are pretty slim, just 14%. Are those odds good enough for you to try? Well, it really depends on the individual person, but...
And you also don't get a choice, it's just whatever vault you're closest to.
It's a genuine way to try to survive. And even if you get into one of the less good vaults, well, you're still probably gonna do better than the people up on the surface. Which brings us to our next example survivor here, Player 2. You're stuck on the surface when the bombs drop. So, well, first off, given the sheer amount of bombs that we know dropped, 12,000, and what we see out in the wilderness in every single game, this isn't going to be a situation where you're able to find a place on Earth that's completely untouched by the Great War and its fallout. Badum-tish. I mean, that's kind of the whole theme of the franchise, right? But we can use context clues to figure out where you don't want to be. For example, it's probably best to live as far away from potential bombing targets as possible, and in this case, that's going to be major cities. Yeah, shockingly, military bases seem to have been more or less left alone from what we can see. While in the TV series, we see at least 3 bombs get dropped on downtown LA all by itself.
DC was also hit by multiple warheads. Boston got hit by a couple, you get the idea. Though we don't have a comprehensive list of every city hit, maps like this one are often pointed to by the Fallout fan community as likely targets for the bombs. So you're gonna want to avoid big cities, state capitals, or really anything that's bigger than a village, because really, the the only major hub of civilization left, more or less untouched, was New Vegas. And the only reason it wasn't bombed to oblivion was because the eccentric Robert House built an insane anti-missile defense system for the city. More or less, rural communities are where you're going to want to go. Though, that's not to say they're going to be entirely safe. I mean, you can see that just from the Appalachia we explore in Fallout 76. Despite being spared from most of the nuclear carnage because of its lack of targets, radiation still made its way into the mountains and also caused sicknesses like the scorched plague to ravage the landscape.
That's not right. Granted, I haven't played a 76 in a while, but if I remember correctly, the Scorch Plague wasn't directly from the nukes. It was like caused by like, was it caused by like some sort of element that was uncovered or by the Enclave, and then the Enclave did experiments on bats, and that's what's called the Scorch Beast and all that stuff. At least I think that's how it worked. I have to look up my lore again.
And what's more, a lot of the local urban legends and cryptids in this universe, so like Mothman or Bigfoot, are real and can also get supercharged by radiation. Like I said, this is about finding the least bad spot you want to stay. You are not going to be wanting to go south and live in like Florida or Louisiana, because just imagine what the radiation is going to do to those gators. And the Pacific Northwest might seem great because of the abundance of water, but the weather is probably going to be supercharged too.
Yeah, I mean, Far Harbor, is bathed just in perpetual radioactive fog.
It rains a lot in this area because of the rain shadow effect coming off the Cascade Mountains, so radioactive rain all the time? No thank you. Honestly, the best places to end up are probably going to be somewhere in the Midwest United States, close to the mountains where the rivers and snow runoff could give you an abundance of water. There's also a lot of space for you to get away from the cities that were bombed and any factions that might pop up after the war. A lot of farmland for you to grow your own food and other crops. A lot of game to hunt so you can have a somewhat replenishable source of meat, and there aren't going to be any terrifying or out of the ordinary animals that could mutate into uniquely terrible creatures.
Yet, you can never count on future migrations.
Like, sure, you're gonna get wolves and bears and that sort of thing, but pretty much everywhere in the United States is gonna have that sort of thing. Now, for a while, I actually thought that the best place to end up might actually be somewhere in Canada. See, in the Fallout universe, Canada was annexed by the United States, and most of its people were put into internment camps. Man, I sure can't imagine that happening IRL.
I thought Fallout was supposed to be fictional.
Anyway, the problem with Canada is that it's going to get cold in the winter. That's pointed out as a problem even before the bombs fell on the show. But, I mean, its lack of big targets might make it a good option if you can make it there, have a ton of clothes to layer on, and don't mind hunkering down for months at a time. Okay, so you've settled down in an area outside of the blast zones, probably in the Midwestern United States. You're in a rural community, or you're just straight up living alone like a hermit. Suddenly you get
homestead
the news.
or something.
The bombs have dropped, and even though you're far enough away from a military target that you're likely safe,
well, let's not take any chances. You haven't been immediately vaporized, but obviously that's not the only thing from a nuke that can kill you. There's a real danger with the fallout too, or the residual radioactive material that falls out of the sky after the nuclear blasts. This stuff is dangerous, and given the sheer number of bombs, will be everywhere.
Actually, a fun fact. So, a couple of things about nukes, both in the Fallout universe and in real life. So in the universe, they actually specifically did it as like a world building thing, where the world decided to keep going with like lots of like smaller nukes, which actually kick up a lot more fallout. As we've developed like bigger nukes as a species, the blasts actually get so high that any residual fallout actually gets like scattered into the wind stream and doesn't fall down for a long time. And second, fallout is actually something you don't really have to worry about anymore, or at least not really have to worry about, because like most nuclear weapons nowadays don't use stuff like uranium or plutonium. They're all like hydrogen or atom bombs.
It can cause radiation poisoning, blindness, burns, loss of limbs, cancer, and even death. So we want to limit exposure as much as possible. So head on into your shelter, slam the door, head down into your well-stocked basement, and wait out the end of the world. But that's only step one.
See, just to be safe, you're going to want to dispose of any clothes you were wearing up on the surface.
Yeah,
because
very important.
Radioactive fallout can cling to clothes like this. The vaults will have fancy jumpsuits to change into, but really, any clothes you have stored down in your bunker will be good. Then, after this, well, settle down for a bit. You don't even want to think about going outside for at least 24 hours, according to the International Commission of Radiological Protection. But realistically, you should prepare to be down here for at least a month, just to be safe. And when you do eventually leave, well, the world's gonna be changed. Which brings us to player 3 here in our example,
the
a
Wastelander.
The bombs have fallen, and now you're just trying to survive up on the surface, with raiders and rad roaches and everything in between out to kill you.
Even if you were held up out in the rural Midwest US with tons of supplies and weapons, well, you're gonna need to take up some new hobbies if you want this to be sustainable for you. Big ones: farming and hunting. Yeah, we've mentioned them a bit already, but being able to make your own food is going to be huge once all of the rations from your random nearby grocery store have been picked clean. Thankfully.
And then there's also, just, crafting and building and stuff like that. Because, like, if you are going hunting, I mean, being able to make bullets, that's kind of important. And also just, being able to scavenge the materials to do so, or try to make it. I don't think can you make gunpowder? I mean, I know you can make black powder. Boy, do you need saltpeter for that? And I have no idea where you get saltpeter from.
Thankfully, many edible plants survived the bombs falling, even though they might look a bit different. Things like carrots, corn, and melons are mostly the same. And now there's new plants like potatoes, which is a hybrid between a tomato and a potato. And there's mutfruit, which is a kind of apple mixed with a crab apple.
I'd also remember some basic water purification strategies. It's gonna be difficult to get any radiation out of it without some heavy-duty machinery, and I mean, lack of pure water is the driving force behind the story of like 3 of the main Fallout games.
Yeah.
But if you can, remember this. First off, if you're getting water from a river, well, if you actually dig a small ditch about a foot or 2 away from the water on the banks, that water will likely filter through the dirt and puddle up in this hole, which you can then collect. That's gonna filter out any major contaminants like sediments or minerals or stuff like that. And you absolutely need to boil any water you drink or use to cook, because that would kill off any germs or parasites in the water that would be too small to be filtered out. This might seem like an unimportant or an easy to misstep, but it is important to do. This stuff can kill you. Now, while you have...
Yeah, I mean, clean water. People have died for it, and especially in the Fallout universe. I was also going to say, like, trying to figure out some sort of, like, you try to make your own, like, filtration system as well. Like, you try to... So you have it from, like, the ground, filter it again, and I think there are ways you can make it, like, you get like a barrel or something, layer in like gravel, sand, charcoal, and stuff like that, and put like a hole in the bottom with like a tap, and then you can kind of like pour water on top, and it'll kind of like slowly seep through, like almost like a Brita filter.
Have your location covered, you're geared up with weapons, have your small farm going, and are in an area with a lot of game you can hunt? Well, the next thing you're going to want to do is find a community. Yeah, surviving on your own can be done. We see a lot of looners out here in the wasteland, but it'll be much easier if you don't have to go it alone.
Now, there are a few groups you could join, but each have their own advantages and disadvantages. The Brotherhood of Steel are nationwide and have a lot of resources since they were born out of a group of US Army survivors. But they also get really extreme and religious about technology and killing anyone that they consider abominations. It is not great. There's also Caesar's Legion, but they're terrible and you might just get killed for a dumb reason. Don't go with them. The NCR out west is pretty solid and resembles the government from the pre-war, but they also get their butt handed to them a lot. Hell, there are even raider gangs you can join or work with if you have 0 morals left.
But the big problem with these groups comes on the other side of that coin. Sure, a lot of them are gonna have safety in numbers, but once they get too big, they draw a lot of attention your way, enough to get the aggression of other rival factions. We see this countless times in this universe. The NCR got too big and butted heads with Caesar's Legion in New Vegas, before Hank and Vault-Tec straight up blew their capital, Shady Sands, off the map. The Brotherhood of Steel goes to war against the Enclave and the Institute in Fallouts 3 and 4, and have a good chance of getting wiped off the map as well. You get the idea. So to avoid that drama, you're gonna want to start a smaller community of fellow survivors. Sure, you won't have as strong numbers, but sometimes trust is more valuable than that.
Yeah, again, we're talking about, hypothetical, Fallout universe here. It's the whole thing. It's like you look at, and the thing is, like, I remember watching back in the day, you had like these shows like about like preppers and stuff like that, and like some of them were like some of them were some of them were like obviously laughable. Like I remember seeing this one episode where like it was this couple, they lived in New York, and their plan was like a canoe, like literally a canoe. And their plan was, if something happened, they were going to go down to like the river, like what is it? What river goes through New York? Is it like not Boston? But you know what I'm talking about. And they basically just go down to the river with their boat and just paddle upstream or something like that. Well, alternatively, you had other people, they had full-on bunkers, and like this one family was going to survive off of like nothing but rabbits, which would have been dangerous because you can actually get protein poisoning from rabbits because it's such a lean meat. And like some of the stuff that some of these people, like it was generally kind of creepy how much they acted like they wanted the end of the world to happen. And like, cause like I can almost imagine it was more of a fantasy thing where it's like, oh, lone wolf, I'm gonna go on it on my own. And when you literally look at all of human history, and like we as a species have not survived because we go it alone. We've survived this long because we work as a group, and like. Oh God. I mean, like, I'm talking because like I am a literal, you know, I am a literal scout leader. And that's one of the skills we try to teach the kids. You know, it's not only how to tie knots, how to, you know, build fires, how to, you know, stuff like that. It's also just, you know, working as a team and like knowing how to put together like a chain of command, knowing how to communicate so the leader of the group knows what's happening, you know, all that sort of stuff.
And being able to avoid the attention of these bigger dogs in the park will likely have you survive longer.
We kinda see this in Fallout 4 with the Minutemen. They're one of the main factions that none of the others really have any beef with. And once they find a competent leader with the player character, they build up small communities that are able to protect themselves from raiders and gunners and alike.
So it looks like you got a pretty good setup going here. You're in a relatively safe area, you have a farm, a source of water, weaponry to protect yourself, and people you trust in your community. Great. You have really solid chances to survive the fallout. But, well, there's one last thing you could do that's, well, it's a bit unconventional. Enter player 4. So no matter what, when you're in the wasteland, you're probably going to be getting dosed with a lot of radiation. It's a constant threat in the games, and the only cure is Radaway. But even then, the long-term effects are probably not going to be great. So the best way to survive in this irradiated world of Fallout? It might just be becoming a ghoul. Okay. I know that sounds ridiculous, but just hear me out. Ghouls are incredibly sturdy. They can take basically any hit as long as their brains are still intact. And as long as they get some radiation, they can heal from most wounds. I mean, just look what happened to Coop in the TV show. At the beginning of season 2, he heals a wound on his neck using a fusion core emitting radiation. And then he got shish kebabbed by a giant metal pole, only to be up and walking again after a friendly super mutant shoved some uranium in the hole to let it heal. That basically makes ghouls like Coop video game protagonists. And on top of the healing, it'll be much easier to find things that you can eat as a ghoul. Their digestive tracts are incredibly resilient, so they're less likely to get sick from spoiled or rotten food
And then there's the whole question of whether they actually even need to eat in the first place. I mean, like, again, they're in Fallout 4, which, you know, it's one of those moments that people kind of argue whether is canon or not. But there is, you know, the little ghoul child that was trapped in a refrigerator for for several hundred years at least.
Irradiated meat from creatures that you're gonna have to hunt. Plus, well, ghouls are a lot like their zombie inspirations and don't mind munching down on meat that's a little more close to home.
Sometimes fella's gotta eat a fella.
And as long as you're okay losing one of your main senses, well, since ghouls don't really have noses, they might not be able to smell the terrible food they're eating anyway. And since smell and taste are so intimately connected in your senses, you can basically ignore any terrible tastes you encounter.
And ghouls can live way longer than normal humans. I mean, Cooper Howard's been around since before the bombs fell, and you can find a kid who seems like he's been trapped in a fridge for about as long in one of the games. And there's
I was literally talking about this.
Who became a ghoul willingly before the bombs even dropped, thinking it would be his best chance to actually survive nuclear annihilation.
The right kind of radiation exposure at the right amounts, it can change human cells, mutate them. Baby, I can live forever.
Now, of course, there are some downsides with your skin and hair melting off, and a lot of people aren't going to like you. I mean, the Brotherhood of Steel basically shoots you on sight.
And then there's also the chance that, you know, you lose your mind and just become a literal zombie. So yeah, there's also that.
not great. And it looks like you might have to take whatever this stuff is for the rest of your life if you don't want to lose your mind.
But that's not really a thing in the game, so who knows what the actual mechanics of that are and if every ghoul needs to take it.
And if you want to survive, and survive for a long time, well, maybe all of those things are a small price to pay with a world set on fire. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. And if you haven't already...
Oh, God, honestly, again, like, as I said before, I don't really know what to think of, you know, the Fallout TV show. Again, like, you look at it, and it looks, like, as they said, it is really well made. Like, the props, the character, the set dressing, the CG, it's like, it looks just almost straight out of the games. But at the same time, like, again, like, I don't know what to think about the stuff they've been doing with the plot. Like, oh, they're like a pre-war survivor of Vault-Tec blew up Shady Sands, or like there's like some sort of drug that allows ghouls to keep their sanity longer if they are on the verge of turning feral. I honestly I don't know what to think, because there are parts of this that I really love and parts that I'm really iffy about. Oh, God. But, yeah, that's definitely going to be it for now. So, yeah, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.